Racism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever, the war. And if you really get into it and study it and learn about it and the history of it and everything's connected. There'd be no climate crisis if it wasn't for racism.
How do you get to that? Tell me.
Where would they put the Where would they put the poison and the pollution? They're not going to put it in Bel Air. They've got to find some place where poor people or indigenous people or people of color are living. Put it there. They can't fight back.
How dare you?
If I can quote the great Ryan George, formerly from Screen Rants, now from Pitch Meetings, wow, 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 wow. What I just showed you was a clip of Jane Fonda blaming men for all the ills of society. And if you happen to be a white man, you are, I guess, doubly, triply, quadruply as guilty, something to that effect. Because, you know, we can't credit men for, you know, shaping the society in which we live. We can't give men credit for upholding 95% of the infrastructure jobs that keep society humming and running. A lot of the times, thanklessly, you know, men don't need praise for going to work, doing what they do, keeping, you know, our power grids going, you know, our water supply pure, stuff like that, since that's primarily, you know, those fields seem to be, you know, not entirely, but mostly men. No, we can't focus on the positives that, you know, men have done. We can't praise people through any walks of life, whether they be Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar. Not that they haven't had their faults, they do. But it's all their fault. Society could have gotten along a lot better without them if we just had women rulers. And this is no ill against women rulers, because women have ran, you know, societies before. It's just not very common, and they're also a lot more likely to go to war. But if you listen to Jane Fonda here, who is obviously a woke extremist Hollywood actress who is probably very out of touch with reality, because let's be honest, most of Hollywood is completely out of touch with what the common person wants or needs and has no care for it because they live in a Hollywood bubble. I mean, you should probably stay away from LA. You should probably just, in general, stay away from California, is my opinion. I would never willingly go there. But Jane Fonda is saying here that she blames white men for climate crisis, calls to arrest and jail them. Of course, because, like I said, men have never done anything good for society. Never. Women could have done it 10 times better. They just haven't. It's not to say that women don't, you know, have their place in society. I think women do a lot of things better than men. Running infrastructure, I don't agree with being one of them. I'm sure they could. They just generally don't seem to really go into those fields to do that. And in the same vein, I probably would not be comfortable dropping my daughter off at a preschool that had 3 men working there and no women. And that's my misandry coming out a little bit. But, you know, some things, you know, you just expect certain people to be better at, essentially. Jane Fonda blamed men and racism for climate change during a conversation at this year's Cannes Film Festival, arguing that without the patriarchy, the crisis allegedly of epic proportions would cease to exist. Without the patriarchy, we would have a lot of things be different, for sure. And climate change, I mean, could be one of them, but I think the biggest activist for climate change, at least in my lifetime, has been Al Gore. People argue Greta Thunberg, but I mean, she was like 13 when she took up that mantle, and she's pretty much just a plant for the whole movement, unfortunately for her. And she doesn't really have a formal education. I mean, I think she dropped out of school when she was, what, like 11? Just saying. Then again, if I could get a ton of money off of just, you know, going around and complaining to first world countries about how they really should offset their emissions but not go to Russia or China, I probably would too. It's a good grift. This is serious, Jane Fonda said Saturday. We've got about 7-8 years to cut ourselves in half. What we use of fossil fuels, and unfortunately the people that have the least responsibility for it are hit hardest. Global South, people on islands, poor people of color, is a tragedy that we have to absolutely stop. We have to arrest and jail those men. They're all men behind this. Wow. Doesn't really pay to be a man in this day and age. Really, doesn't. Men, all your fault. Reminds me of the Prince Harry, Meghan Markle thing when they're saying, you need to stop flying. Don't you realize your carbon footprint? While they jet set around the world about 100 times a year. But if I go take a vacation somewhere, that was very rude, car. Excuse that. If I go take a vacation once a year, if I want to fly down to Florida, go to Nevada, Hawaii, Canada, Rome, that's on me. It's my issue. I shouldn't even be doing that. But certain people can just do it all the time because they're so important, they're so special, they're so privileged. And I want to say right now, I guarantee you Jane Fonda has been on more planes in her lifetime, has more of a carbon footprint than I could ever have in the rest of my life. I guarantee it. More than, by 10 times, 20 times, 100 times possibly. But, I guess it's my fault and your fault if you're a man listening. Crazy. She continued answering a question from one of the audience members when she delved into her claims that the climate crisis couldn't exist without the perfect conditions. I would blame it mostly on post-industrialism, but okay, let's see what she says. Quote, it's good for all of us to realize there would be no climate crisis if there was no racism. There would be no climate crisis if there was no patriarchy. A mindset that sees things in a hierarchical way, white men are the things that matter, and then everything else is at the bottom. She said it, not me. The 85-year-old star and activist, 85, hey, good for her, who notoriously took hits from critics in the past for her Vietnam War protests that earned her the Hanoi Jane nickname, has renamed longstanding advocate for climate change awareness, and the platform at the Cannes Film Festival was no exception. She spoke on activism, including what it means to denounce those she claims are responsible for climate change, saying she feels as if she is fighting patriarchy and racism whenever she takes a stand on the issue. Again, I don't know how racism would possibly play into this, but maybe she's going to elaborate a little bit. Quote, it's important because we have to get out of the silos. Feminists over here, environmentalists over here. That's what I learned when I started being an activist around the Vietnam War. Which, hey, I know there was a lot of protests around the Vietnamese War. A lot of people thought we shouldn't have gone over there. I think a lot of that was a fallout from going over to Korea, which I think a lot of people didn't really feel was right either. But I think the Vietnamese War was more of a repeat of it, the whole Iron Curtain thing. But I'm not going to get into a whole history lesson here. The more you go down any issue, whatever it is, you realize that it's all connected. And if we solve the climate crisis and we haven't solved those other things, we're going to be in trouble. Fonda's climate activism also led to her arrest, alongside Grace and Frankie co-star Sam Waterston during an October 2019 demonstration outside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. At the time, she told a reporter she chose to be there to bring the cause to the media's attention. We're trying to raise the visibility of this crisis, she said. Fonda was arrested at other climate protests as well, including with actor Ted Danson in a separate incident in Washington, D.C. in the same year. Well, Fonda can afford to be arrested. She's a multimillionaire. She's a very successful actress. She has got a career about it. And like I said, you can, protest the climate change thing. Obviously, I think that is an issue. We probably should get off of fossil fuels. However, as Greta Thunberg has done and gone in front of Congress and said, you need to fix this, nobody really has a solution as of yet for fixing it. And people like Elon Musk, who have come out with the electric car solution, are disavowed for buying Twitter. So there is no winning with these types of people, I don't think. I just think it's funny how it's all men's fault. We can't give men any credit for anything anymore. Men haven't helped shape society. They haven't built up the buildings we live in, the sewage system that carries our waste, the electricity that runs into our houses, the heating systems that warm our homes. No, none of that. Because what have they not done? And I would say for, Jane Fonda and other radical feminists, because I don't think all feminists are like this, but I think there is a certain portion that really do hate men. If you think you can do it better, go do it. Go get one of those uninhabited islands in, Hawaii. There's 137 of them. Only 7 islands in Hawaii are inhabited. There's another 137, which I don't believe anybody is on. No, I guess another 130. 130 that nobody's on. Go make your own society. Make it a matriarchy. See how it goes. You got the money. You got the resources. Go build it up. Do you, queen? Craziness. Anyway, that's all I got. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening to this song, and I will catch you all in the next one. Later.